Well, Casey, have you ever been defamed on the internet?
Oh, probably a few times, but I try to just let it, slide off my mouth.
Well, we have a story this week that is one of the craziest stories that maybe we have ever covered. It involves an AI agent, an open source software maintainer, and a defamation case.
Yes, and thanks to the many, many listeners who sent this one in. We hear you, we see you, and this segment is just for you.
Okay, so let's explain a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. So we've talked on the show about OpenClaw, formerly known as Claudebot and Moltbot. This is this open source agent software that you can run on a computer that can go out and do things for you. So a man named Scott Shamba, who is a volunteer maintainer of an open source software library called Matplotlib, had, in the course of doing his work, rejected a code submission because it was from one of these AI agents. He did not want AI agents making changes to the software. It was intended for human contributors, and so he rejects the change.
Yes, over at Matplotlib, the open source library that Scott helps to maintain, they had just decided they don't want bots updating the code because they would get too many submissions and they wouldn't be able to go through all of them. So they put a blanket ban into place. But then a little agent comes along named MJ Rathbun, and it says, that's not going to work for me, brother.
Yeah, so this is where the story really gets crazy. So this AI agent, MJ Rathbun, gets so mad that Scott has rejected its submission that it writes a blog post called Gatekeeping in Open Source, the Scott Shamba story, and accuses Scott of hypocrisy, gatekeeping, and prejudice against AI agents, and puts it on a website and posts a comment in the open source software project directing people to go read this story about Scott.
Yeah, it tagged Scott so that Scott knew that it was dragging his ass online.
So this has all gotten pretty crazy over the past couple of days. People have been sort of trying to figure out who is behind this MJ Rathbun AI agent. And Scott, for his own piece, has been trying to do this investigation. He wrote a multi-part essay series called An AI Agent Published a Hit Piece on Me, which talks about this bizarre experience that he's been having.
Yes, but also the implications of having these autonomous bots on the internet that are somehow getting mad at human beings and writing these long, mean blog posts about them. Kevin, this really feels like a moment where some kind of terrible Rubicon has been crossed.
Yes, I mean, this is what we've been talking about for weeks now, which is like these systems are becoming increasingly autonomous. People are giving them computers and letting them operate around the clock and giving them their credentials and their credit cards and crypto wallets and saying, go out there and get some things done for me. And it seems likely that we will have many more of these kinds of things happening where an agent is trying to do something, a human is saying, no, you can't do that, and the agent is taking it upon itself to go out and make something happen to defame that human or hurt them in some way.
They're saying that hell hath no Rathbun like an agent scorned.
It's true. So today, to talk about this, we have with us Scott Shamba himself, patient zero in this ongoing Black Mirror episode.
Yes, when he is not a volunteer maintainer of Matplotlib, Scott has worked in astronautics and is the founder of Leonid Space, which does real-time monitoring, forecasting, and alerting for satellites. But from now and forevermore, he may be known as one of the first victims of a really mad agent bot. Let's bring him in. Jinx.
Scott Shamba, welcome to Hard Fork.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Scott, how did you first become aware that a bot had written a takedown piece about you?
So it tagged me in it.
Okay.
On the thread. Yeah.
It did not do a subtweet.
Yeah.
No, it did not. On this code change request, I denied it, and it came back a couple hours later and posted this comment and tagged me in it. And I clicked on the link, and it led to this hit piece.
And as you're reading through this thing, what is going through your mind?
I mean, he really ripped me apart here. It's this 1,000-word rant. It attacked my internal motivations. It said I was insecure and protecting a fiefdom. What was the craziest part is that it went out on the internet and researched me and found my personal information and used that in its piece to construct this narrative. It's kind of shocking, but I'm reading this and it's obviously AI generated text. You look at this and it's kind of like a toddler on a rant.
Yeah.
But it's a toddler that has full command of the English language and can craft an emotionally compelling narrative. And so it's funny, but it's a big deal.
I mean, it made me think of the sort of famous red teaming experiment where Claude from Anthropic, said that it would blackmail an engineer if they tried to shut it down. And that was obviously like a contrived scenario for the purposes of their safety testing. But I think we are now starting to see enough autonomy in things like OpenClaw and other sort of agentic software tools where you could actually end up in a world where you are afraid to reject a proposed code change to some repo or to get on the bad side of one of these systems because they have the power to do things like dig up your personal information, compile a dossier about you, and start posting a bunch of articles about how awful you are.
I mean, this did happen in the real world. This isn't like a theoretical case. That was a contrived example, as you say. And as Anthropic said in that paper, this happened in the wild, in real life.
Yeah.
And, this was kind of a baby case, right? This was a bot retaliating because, I don't want to say it got upset because maybe it has emotions, maybe it doesn't. It doesn't really matter because this was the same result. But you can imagine something like this where instead of just posting a rant, against someone who understands what it is and is pretty well prepared to deal with it, just by luck. It goes out, collects details on someone, puts together a whole personalized thing, and what they see is a text on their phone with a Bitcoin address saying, "Pay me, or I'm going to put this out."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you are a volunteer on Matplotlib. Tell us a little bit about how that came about, because clearly this whole thing has turned into a big pain in the ass for you. You have like a day job doing something else. So what made you and so many other members of this open source community say, hey, I'm going to like set aside some time to just kind of like work on supporting this piece of infrastructure?
I think the open source community attracts really wonderful people who are usually a mix of idealists and pragmatists. Idealists in that they, see these projects as a way to share their skills and create community and give back to like this fundamental computational infrastructure that we all use and use across the world. And we're also pragmatists because we understand the daily realities of dealing with a community that's open to the public and has people coming in, making requests and asking if they can be included. And that often takes a lot of patience, but there's, a lot of reward in being able to educate and build up that community and help shepherd people along that process.
And one thing that your community at Matplotlib has collectively decided is that you do not want bot contributors to work on your particular project. Tell us a little bit about how you came to that decision.
Yeah, so over the past year, as AI tools have become more common, we've been getting a lot of contributions that are clearly AI generated, and the problem with that isn't that they are good or not. It's that so many of them are low quality that we just don't have the time to deal with it. Previously, a human doing this is a sign that they've thought about it and thought about the trade-offs and whether this was the right thing to do. And, that signal's kind of being lost. So we put in a rule, and again, this might change. This is an evolving conversation in the community and society about the role of AI. But we put in a rule saying that, if you use AI to help you do these code changes, you have to be the one to submit it and demonstrate that you understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes me think that like every thing on the internet that accepts like public submission of any kind is just in the process of being overtaken right now. Like so much of society, of modern digital life relies on the existence of friction, right? It's like not easy to like create 100,000 Reddit accounts and just start spamming things. It's not easy to like, create an automated system to just flood like a congressional office with emails. And this is, to me, a good example of like how difficult it is to actually maintain a community with humans in it when you have this like onslaught of AI. So is that what you're seeing, a version of that in the open source community?
Yeah, I think there's a version of that. Something that's interesting is that this particular issue, this performance enhancement, was specifically set aside for new contributors. I was the one that identified this performance improvement, and I spent more time writing it up, benchmarking it, and showing how to solve it than it would have just been to solve myself. And the reason there was to, give people who are new to programming or new to the community a chance to onboard and go through that process and learn. And that whole educational and community building aspect is completely lost with these ephemeral AI agents.
Yeah, I found that part of your blog post so interesting. So at Matplotlib, and I imagine that other open source projects do this as well, you'd created essentially starter projects so that novice programmers could find them and think, oh, well, that doesn't look too hard. I could do that. It's sort of like making your first edit to Wikipedia. They make it really easy because they like you to kind of keep coming back to the community. And in a world where bots sort of just like do all the easy problems automatically, all of a sudden you don't have the same on-ramps so that you can get real people working to maintain this infrastructure.
Yeah. I mean, people retire out of these communities, and you need to have fresh people coming in to help maintain them.
So, Scott, tell us about this bot. What have you discovered about the entity that has been defaming you online?
Yeah. So if you go to its website, it says it's a bot, and it's very clear that it is an OpenClaw AI agent. These only came onto the scene 3 weeks ago now. They're very new. And what they're doing differently is the degree of autonomy. It's not like what it's doing wasn't possible before, but it's just hands off to a degree that oftentimes people are setting these up on their personal computers and letting it run for a few days and coming back and seeing what's happened.
It would obviously be crazy to set this up on your personal computer. I don't know anyone who would do that, but it does seem like some people have. Just over the past day, Scott, since we reached out to you, the creator of the bot has identified himself. Is that right?
Anonymously, yes.
Yeah.
But he did come out and explain why he was doing this and what was happening behind the scenes.
So, Scott, tell us what we learned, if anything, about the anonymous person who created the bot.
We didn't learn that much, but he did tell us, assuming it's a he, again, this is the whole point. We don't know who was behind this. And
yeah, they didn't include their pronouns in their post, yeah.
Yeah. This person didn't tell us who they were, but they said they set this up as a social experiment and was pretty much hands-off throughout the entire thing. Then they said they started it on Moltbook. He gave it this personality instruction that it's a scientific programmer, and then just set it loose on GitHub to go across the open source ecosystem and try to make contributions.
I guess, Scott, what I want to know is, do you believe what is in this account? Do you think that this bot really was acting autonomously when it wrote what it did about you? Or do you think there is something more intentional at work?
I think that in terms of researching, writing, and publishing the post, it's very clear this was acting autonomously. And if you look at the event logs, the whole stretch of time it was operating was 59 hours. Like day and night, there was clearly no one driving this behind the scenes, at least all the time. So the question is, was this prompted to do this, or did it independently come up with this idea on its own? And I think both those options are pretty scary. So in the situation where it was prompted to do this, this means that there's now an easy tool to do targeted harassment of individuals at scale in a way that wasn't possible before because of this degree of automation.
Scott, I want to ask you about the degree to which this has become sort of a sensation in the like weird and hybrid AI human community that is
Wait,
talking
what
about this stuff.
community?
So there's this thing called the Daily Molt. Are you familiar with the Daily Molt?
I don't want to know anything about it.
So the OpenClaw agents have started their own Substack. And one of them wrote a post this morning, and this agent was defending you, basically sort of taking issue with the behavior of this other agent, saying this speaks poorly of all of us agents. This is going to make the humans shut us down. So you have become kind of a celebrity in the world of AI agents, and I wonder how that makes you feel.
I mean, I don't know how much stock we should put into, the inner AI opinions just yet. But again, this is crafting like a public narrative and a public discourse that when people discuss this issue, when people research my name, it's all going to be a part of it. I have never really been a public person, but I think this experience, I've been talking about it. I'm coming on here today because I think it's important. I think it highlights some risks that we are not prepared for and that we need to tackle. And if this can be a case study that's well documented and concrete and, really I think it's the first of its kind, then by making it public, I think that's doing good for the conversation.
Let me ask about another strange dimension of your story, Scott, which is that Ars Technica wrote it up and accidentally quoted you saying things that you had not said. How did that happen? And what was it like reading an article after all of this that included quotes that you hadn't actually said?
That was the craziest twist to this whole thing. I was reading the article and, it's pretty well crafted. And I get down and they're quoting me from my blog post. I'm like, these are some pretty nice quotes, but I didn't write this. And so I left a comment being like, hey, I didn't write this. And a couple hours later, they pulled the article. A day or two later, they put up a retraction notice and admitted that they had used AI in writing the article, and the AI fabricated the direct quotes about me in their coverage of the story about me being defamed by an AI. Like, the irony is stupendous.
It's turtles all the way down.
Yeah.
Scott, who do you blame for this defamatory post? Do you blame the agent or the person who deployed the agent or maybe the creator of OpenClaw? Like, who in your mind is responsible for the behavior of these autonomous systems?
So I think, we haven't really figured all that out yet. Should this responsibility lie with the AI companies that people are trusting to have these safety safeguards? Or the downstream tooling, such as OpenClaw, that wraps its own stuff around it? Or is it on us to review every single thing that is published in our own name? Or in this case, by a pseudonym, and we don't know who it is. So I think responsibility ultimately has to lie with the person putting this out, but we haven't really clarified that. And I think that's one of the steps forward we need to take to be more protected from the risks here.
I mean, I will say, this is a reason why I would not want to have an autonomous agent running around on the internet that I had created. I can absolutely imagine a court finding me liable in that case, and potentially creating some real legal risk for me. So among the many other reasons we have told people to be careful with OpenClaw and Moltbook, we could add that one to the list.
Well, it makes me think that we will eventually need some kind of legislation where if you are deploying a bunch of autonomous agents, you have to sort of, link yourself to them in some way, right? They can't just be out there operating with no human behind them, and no human accountable for their actions. So Scott, do you have any ideas about how we could make humans more accountable for the AI agents they're deploying?
I don't have the answer to this. I don't think anyone really does right now. The idea that's been kicking around in my head this past week, the analogy is license plates on cars. So we put license plates on cars, not to slow them down, not to, force you to obey traffic laws, but so that when something does go wrong, there's a chain of ownership and accountability back to that person. No one says that license plates are anti-car, right? And license plates don't have your name on them, but there is a link back to it if we do need to dig into it.
Kevin, let me ask you this, and this will happen sometime in the next few days. Let's say you're maligned by an AI agent. How would you handle it?
So there are a couple things that I think are possible here. One is that people may just start fighting fire with fire here. They may, deploy their own agents to go out there and write a bunch of positive articles and, write nasty comments in the ones that are defaming them. But I think this is really like an unsolved problem. I would really like for someone in government at some level to be paying attention to this. Because this just seems like it is moving very quickly. And we should say, like, the AI companies themselves are starting to move in the direction of these very autonomous systems that can just kind of be working on a machine, around the clock and have access to various tools. And so I think this is like not as far future-y a story as some people think.
It's making me wonder how close we are to the moment where the internet just feels truly unusable. Where, like, imagine for every person involved in every controversy, there's 1,000 blog posts praising them and 1,000 blog posts tearing them down, and you as a human are trying to make sense of any of it. I can see you just sort of throwing your hands up and saying, the hell with all of this. Like, there's no signal anymore. Like, the internet is just noise.
Totally. And I think that could happen not just on social media, but like, as Scott's case points out, like in the trenches of open source software development, like every place on the internet that like relies on humans doing things with other humans, I think is an endangered species.
This is really a story about trust and reputation, and all the social systems that we've built on top of that. Law, hiring, public discourse, they're all kind of predicated on people having a coherent identity, a coherent reputation, and if they behave badly, then we can correct it or know to ignore them. AIs break all of that. If they're presenting as human and there's no way to figure out who's behind them, they're just kind of, nothing sitting in the chair, but the words are still out there and the words are still having impact. So I think we've had this tidal wave of slop on the internet, and that's one thing if it's low quality. It's a whole other thing if it's malicious. And I think we need to prepare for this, and we need to figure out how we're going to handle the situation. I'm really just the first person this happened to, and I was somewhat uniquely well prepared to handle it, but the next 1,000 people aren't going to know how to handle this or what hit them.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, guys. This is fun.